Okay, so this video is for all the business brokers out there, investment bankers, advisors, people that work on sales side engagements that want to make 2026 their best year ever. And I want to record this. I don't generally record a lot of videos for intermediaries, but I got asked, about it, so I felt this might be actually very relevant to a lot of folks. How can you make 2026 your best year ever? There are a lot of things that I could talk about. I mean, we can really spend hours discussing this subject because I personally believe that the business broker industry is pretty fucked up. A lot of people don't understand what's happening in the market, what's changing, and a lot of them have, been dealing with a very old style and old approach that is not conducive to business anymore. And maybe that has helped them get by, but is not going to be something that leads to prosperity. And if you are one of these folks, then this video found you at the right time. Now, before we actually dive in some of the issues that are happening, some of the things that you need to be aware of if you want to make 2026 your best year ever, let's just first talk about the market outlook. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Marco Palmero. Our company, Ulysses, is fundamentally an M&A partner of advisors like yourself, buyers, strategic acquirers, private equity groups, and we originate deals on their behalf. So we basically source opportunities that then can materialize into multi-million-dollar acquisitions. So why am I talking to you about this? Well, because we do that actively, not only in North America, Middle East, Europe, you name it, variety of different industries for deals that go from anything like 500K in enterprise value up to 75, 100 million in enterprise value. So what's happening into the market? Well, we're seeing competition grow quite a bit, right? Not only from a buyer's perspective, which of course is a good thing for you as an intermediary because it means you have more people that can buy your assets, but also from a business brokerage perspective, intermediary perspective, there are a lot more advisors out there that are competing for the same deals. And since not a lot of the deals that can be found out there are actually good, it's actually a tiny portion of them can actually be sold, it becomes increasingly challenging to get access to these deals and then be the one that closes them. So that's the first thing that we're seeing. As an extra layer to it, I would add that the market is shifting towards a very personalized approach. Long gone are the days where it used to be, enough to just blast email people, send mail campaigns, or just cold call folks out of the blue, and you would had the ability to get conversations with business owners interested in selling. There are still ways that work if that strategy is adapted, but a lot of you folks just doing the same thing that you did 3, 4, 5 years ago, even 1 year ago, you're probably not going to succeed because the market is changing super, super fast. And chances are that if you're watching this video and you're facing some of these issues, you have noticed that change happening, especially this year. If something has changed and maybe you didn't sell as many businesses as you wanted, the reason is the market is changing very, very fast and we need to adapt that, and old strategies really don't produce outcomes anymore. So we're switching towards an approach that is becoming very personalized in nature. What do I mean by that? Even if we do outreach to business owners, which is part of how you originate leads, and we do that kind of like in a organized and structured way, we cannot create campaigns that are very general in nature. And to some respect, AI is producing the opposite results that people were hoping for, because AI kind of opened the door to personalization, but people are abusing it and using it incorrectly. I recorded tons of videos on that. Go watch them if you're interested. They're also very relevant to business buyers, by the way. But the point is, AI is not creating a solution for these problems of personalization. To some respect, is making the personalization issue even more relevant, because it's creating messages that are just too robotic, that people don't respond to, then people can easily spot as generated, or that tools are now detecting as being written by AI and therefore not delivering to the right people, or just flagging independently of the channel that you're using to do outreach and originate lead flow. So that situation is creating a personalization issue where, again, blasting people will not work anymore. I mean, it hasn't been the case for a lot of years, but some folks still believe it is enough for you to get deals done. The extreme personalization route of AI is not helping either. What's happening and what's going to happen in 2026 is that we're going to see a segmentation of the market where reaching out to people in a very customized way by narrowing down the niche in a very detailed manner will make the difference between the guys that do get responses, do get opportunities before anybody else, and others that just don't get a reply, get ignored, and they don't actually get deals done. So the first point is you're gonna need to revise everything that you do from an outreach perspective to be more channeled, more segmented. So if you, for example, are a broker or an advisor that is supporting businesses in the healthcare sector, you're going to need to segment any tiny niche within the healthcare sector and personalize the way you reach out to these owners based on the challenges they're facing in the industries, the reason why they might want to exit that business, and the market conditions of that particular industry, and all other elements that we generally cover when we work with clients one-on-one. But will be too long to explain in the video. The point is, you're going to need to pay a higher attention into how you connect with people, not only because things are more competitive, it's difficult to be personalized in today's market, but also because despite what a lot of people might think, opportunities are not unlimited. So you might be dealing in a very huge market. I'm talking about healthcare in the United States, for example. And you might say, well, there are a lot of companies that might want to sell. Yeah, that's true. But if you fucked up the process for many years and you burned a lot of these leads, chances are you're left with just a tiny portion of that marketplace, because a lot of folks are not going to talk with you anyway, because you completely burn the opportunities before it even present itself. So there's a challenge that a lot of folks are happening and they're not seeing tangibly, and they cannot actually realize why that is happening, but it is actually happening. So some of the bad practices that they put in place back in the day that might have worked for short-term gains are not paying dividends now that we are in a new area, so to speak, and we need to be more careful about the way we reach out to business owners to generate sales side clients, listings, whatever. So the market is going to that direction. Personalization that is not tied to AI, it's tied to a carefully selected approach for segmenting the list, and then a multi-channel approach, something that I cannot stress enough, because a lot of folks still believe that there's one channel that is the solution for finding deals. You're totally wrong, and chances are you're not making as much as you could be making, even if you are decently successful. By the way, most of the folks that do have these beliefs are probably broke and are struggling. Hopefully this video can help you and kind of like break some of the beliefs that you have so that you can move towards the right end of the spectrum. We don't work with broke people, by the way, but hopefully this video can help you for free. So the market is going into that direction. Only people that are able to connect with folks in the right way are ultimately going to get opportunities that are good, and they're going to get preferential access to these opportunities. So more deal flow, more pipe, more listings, more deals in the pipeline, more commissions at the end of the cycle. Then we're also going to be seeing a kind of like cyclicality that is something that has always been in place, but now a lot of people are realizing how important that is. And what I mean by that is, if you're an advisor, chances are a lot of the folks that you're getting as deals are either sourced through outbound outreach or referrals or references that people send to you. The references are generally people that want to close a deal and want to sell the business within a short period of time. So they're already motivated, and you have to do less work to get them over the line. That's good. It helps you close your short-term cycle and keep that pipeline active at all times. The problem is, if you just focus on that, then as you run out of referrals, you're back to square one. You have periods of time where you have nothing to do. Deals are not coming in. You don't know how to source them, and you keep blasting a list that is not going to produce any results because you have no relevance for them, and just sending a message that is not going to be received well, independently of whether you use cold calls, emails, social media outreach. It doesn't matter. And by the way, a lot of folks that might be watching this video, maybe you're one of them, will say, well, I tried all these things, they didn't work. Well, chances are you've been doing it incorrectly, or you've worked with somebody that has no experience in this industry. Maybe it was just a marketing guy, and therefore was using best practices for marketing services instead of optimizing for business deals, which is a completely different thing. And hopefully I will get to dive into that into this video, but it's going to be quite a long video anyway. So these are some of the challenges and some of the kind of like premises that lead us into 2026. You're going to need to be aware of that. If you're already doing well, chances are you can build on some of the things that you have been doing. Maybe you can keep some of the stuff that you have been doing, but you're going to need to be adaptable because things are going to change quite fast. And you're going to need to create stuff that resonates with target audiences in a much better way. If you're broke, if you didn't have a lot of success, to some respect, it might be even better because then you can, destroy everything that you did so far and just start from scratch. So what are some of the things that I would want you to consider? Well, first of all, there's going to be a short-term cycle, long-term cycle for DealFlow. If you want to originate opportunities and get more deals done every single year, you cannot just survive by leveraging referrals. You want to have a system that predictably nurtures leads, and that is not just a newsletter that goes out every once in a while that talks about how good you are and how good your firm is, because people don't care and they don't give a shit about that, especially if they're business owners. They're busy, and you know better than I do that these folks, especially if they have a good business, I'm not going to invest a lot of time in reading or watching or consuming something that is not carefully crafted and it is not being created to answer some of the burning questions that they have. So we want to go into that direction, create something that is personalized for them. And independently of whether you are agnostic as a broker, advisor, investment banker, or if you're specific to one industry, there are tons of ways you can optimize for that. If you're agnostic, you're going to need to segment some of the key markets where you've been most successful and focus on those. And then again, segment the lists and the leads and the sub-industries so that you can be more relevant to each one of them. So a lot of work there. If you only focus on one specific sector, then you need to segment the sub-industries and create something that resonates with each and every one of them. That's point number one. So segmentation, creating something that resonates with these folks, and then the nurturing process needs to be kind of like coherent as well. That's first step. But then completely understanding and being accepting of the fact that a lot of the things that you tried in the past might not have worked because you did them incorrectly, or the person that did them for you was not understanding the mergers and acquisition, the business acquisition marketplace. What do I mean by that? I spoke with some business brokers, not a lot because we haven't worked with a lot of them, and most of them said, well, Marco, we tried outreach strategies to business owners. We tried cold calls, we tried SMSs, we tried cold email, we tried LinkedIn, we tried social media, we tried everything there is to try, and nothing has worked too well for us. Well, a lot of reasons might go behind it. It might be behind that. First, you might not have done enough volume to get the results that you needed. You might not have done things long enough to see whether or not they were producing an actual result, or you might just simply have done things incorrectly. So you build processes that don't actually they're not conducive to a result. But there's a more important point that I want to stress, because the few conversations that I had kind of brought up this issue quite a bit. A lot of business brokers that had capital to allocate towards originating deals and originating opportunities trusted agencies or marketing people to originate deals for them. And nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's totally fair. Of course, you get paid to close deals, not to source them. So all your time should go into what you are actually good at, which is listing the deals, finding the right buyer, and then closing the transaction. Somebody else should take care of finding these opportunities for you. What is the problem with that? Well, in most instances, you trusted marketing agencies that had a very broad understanding of what the marketing concepts are. And they maybe were very good at what they were doing, but they didn't understand the business acquisition marketplace inside out. What is the issue with that? Well, that people don't realize that in this particular case, we're not necessarily selling a product or service to anybody. You might say, well, yeah, I'm selling people on engaging us as broker, as an advisor, as an investment banker. And if I have a fee or if I have a success fee, I need to sell them on the engagement. They fundamentally buy our service as a product or as a service in and of itself. But that's not necessarily true, because when people buy a product or service that is different from an acquisition, they're basically either buying something that they need, something that they want, an outcome that they desire, but that is clearly defined and is not fundamentally a life-changing decision that they're making. In our case, we're first qualifying people for interest. So the first step that we need to walk them through is, from business owners, what are and how many do we have that are actually thinking or entertaining the idea of selling. That's step number one. So qualification item number one. And then from that moment, how many of those are willing to engage now? How many in 2 months time, 4 months time, 6 months time? And then how many of those want to take the step and actually work with us to kind of like close that transaction? The process of finding these people and also the way you sell to them and kind of like build your value proposition is completely different than selling a product or a service. Most people will say, and most marketing folks would say, well, that's not true. You're just selling another service to them. Not quite, because we're talking about, again, life-changing decision. And in most cases, they're entrusting you with their future, which is something, quite difficult, right? With their past and their future at the same time, because they're basically giving you their business that they created over 10, 20, 30 years. They're saying to you, help me sell it. So the way you market to them and the way you reach out to them is completely different than just reaching out to somebody about a tax strategy service or a legal service or a product that you're selling or a coaching offer. All these things are completely different, and they're fine. They're marketing people that certainly are much better than I do at addressing these issues and creating systems that work for these types of prospects. We specialize in sourcing deals for M&A people, whether they're buyers, advisors, brokers, you name it. And all we do is originating deals, which means we know what are these people looking for and what are the things that are going to resonate with them when we reach out. And that's, you might say, not a big deal, but in reality, it is, because some of the reasons why you might not have been successful at some of the strategies that I outlined before might have been because you haven't worked with somebody that understands this market fully. And then you wondered why you were not getting the results that you wanted. So that's the first thing. Then, as I said, the systems that you have might be broken because they focus on short-term cycles alone, and you're not creating continuity for deals that might be ready 2, 4, 6 months later. And what I mean by that is, as we get leads to a potential pipeline, there are going to be a lot of folks, as a matter of fact, the majority of folks that are not going to be interested in selling the business right now, but they might be ready 2, 4, 6 months later. Maybe they might be ready 12 months later. Who knows? We want to build a pipeline that has the ability to message and keep in touch with them in a very relevant way without sounding intrusive and without sounding like a pre-generated message that anybody gets. And that is really what pays dividends for you as a partner of these businesses long term, because you're fundamentally planting seeds that are gonna make these people think, oh wow, this guy not only has an interest in helping me with this exit, but it also provided X, Y, and Z value as I was heading towards the decision to help me understand things. And no, I'm not talking about sending them a fucking document that they're never gonna read, or sending them a bunch of information about how cool you are and why you're better than other intermediary firms, because nobody's gonna care about that. People are gonna care about how you are adding value to them and what are the things that are gonna benefit them, what's in it for them. Because now that the market is saturated, as I mentioned, people are valuing a lot of things, amongst others, relationship, and that's how we build that, through continuity, especially if we're reaching out to new prospects. And so, how to make 2026 your best year ever? First, realize that market is saturated. We need to change some of the things that we do, segment people, and be more targeted in the way we reach out to them, independently of whether you're agnostic or just focused on a specific sector. Then, realizing that a lot of the things that you might have done have not worked because you've been doing them incorrectly, or not optimizing them for the specific market that you're targeting, and therefore you might want to revisit some of these things. Then understanding that you need to have a pipeline that fulfills both short-term cycles and long-term cycles. So if you have and you're relying on referrals for short-term, fine. You want to build for long-term too, so that every time you have an empty month where no referrals are coming in, or an empty quarter where no referrals are coming in, you have something else. You have other deals that are actually good that you can act on. Because one of the biggest issues of business brokers, advisors in general, it's more like business brokers that have a lot of listings in their hands, is that they would take everything that comes through their door just with the hopes of making a commission. The problem is they're diluting themselves into thinking and into believing that they have a lot of opportunities in their hands. But the reality of it, let me actually ask you this question. How many of these opportunities are actually slam dunks? Probably not so many, right? And you as an expert know better than me that when an opportunity is good, it's gonna sell quickly. And you're gonna see, how good it is within a short period of time. All the other deals are going to sit in there, and chances are they're never going to close unless either the buyer comes to the realization that the business is not worth as much, or something happens into the market or into that business that makes things change dramatically. So immediately when an opportunity is good. But a lot of you think that just because you have a lot of opportunities listed, then you're going to make a lot of money. But that is not the case, because a lot of these deals are trash. And so separate yourself from this belief that just because you have a lot of listings, therefore you're going to make a lot of money, because only the good deals are going to close in a reasonable time frame. So why don't we create a system that can bring you more of these opportunities and give you more choice, so that you can ultimately really start to feel like you have control over a process, and where your next deal is going to come from, because you have good options, and every deal that you have in your pipeline is actually actionable, not just another opportunity that you put in because you were looking to fill a hole, or you wanted to list anything that was coming to your door. I see a lot of these business brokers and advisors struggle with this, and that is because they never moved away from the mentality that referrals are going to take care of everything. And ultimately they started to realize that referrals were only getting them so far and only getting them so many deals. And they started to say, well, I need to get my hands on everything that I can find. Otherwise, I'm not going to make as much commission. The problem is they get deals that are not good, that they not close. So they're doing more work, they're more stressed out, and they're not closing these deals. And that happens to anybody, right? Even to guys that are doing quite well, they still have a lot of listings that don't close. You can be as selective as you want. There's still going to be a portion of them that generally doesn't close. So 2026 is going to be defining how people can find deal flow predictably, and kind of like, I'd say, is going to separate the folks that stick to an old mentality and don't realize that they need to change things in order to get more deals, more commissions through the door, and folks that instead build systems and integrate multi-channel solutions, nurturing processes that work, in kind of like a system to originate deals that they can control, and that is ultimately bringing them good opportunities every single time. That's going to be the separation. And the way you can make 2026 your best year is by one, understanding that the market has changed, segmenting as much as you can, creating something that resonates to every specific sub-industry so that you can be highly relevant to that person, both with your outreach and your nurturing. Then after that, building a pipeline that is consistent over time and fulfill both short-term cycle and long-term cycle. And that is done through a multi-channel outreach that enables you not only to connect with as many business owners as possible, but to reach out to them where they're more likely to respond so that you can build real relationships and even get deals that might become available 6-12 months later and have a pipeline that is a real one. So it's like a real deal flow pipeline. If you're interested in that, check my links below. We help some of these intermediary firms with success. We also help a lot of buyers in sourcing deals. Again, I mentioned in the beginning the type of assets that we buy. Again, we help people building systems that work, and we don't do it for free. So just be aware of that. If you're broke, if you just want somebody that will share your commission at the end of the day, probably this is not the right fit for you. But if you're serious about building a pipeline that lasts and that delivers you tangible results, then this is highly relevant, and it can make 2026 your best year ever.